educated gentleman. One must agree that sometimes finding the perfect description, or word for that matter, can prove to be a daunting task, well beyond the capabilities of most men. I, however, am not most men. I am what is known amongst the right circles as an educated gentleman. This fact has proved in many an instance to be most fortunate, and in this particular unsettling series of events met by me this very day, such an ability has proved itself more valuable than gold. Of course, it all began with the book. In this fact, if in no other, I am most certain. It wasn't the appearance of the text, to be sure, that proved disruptive to myself, as well to the lives of most all who call planet Earth their home, but I digress. It was more of an intangible feeling which rose from its pages like a scent most foul cast upon my nasal passages. It made me jitter? No, that is a word far too common as well as inadequate for the occasion. Jitter is a word used for more common events such as... Oh. Once more I find myself a victim to digression. Damned! That is the word for which I search, the most perfect word, that damned book. I swear to all pantheons that dwell above us, as well as those who rule from below, that I had not ever touched, handled, skimmed through, or perused said book. In the above exclamation to the various pantheons, I am including those of all cultures and races, so as to better prepare myself for any afterlife which may exist for such a wretched soul as myself. Now I could bore you with the details of how I indeed had quested, is that too Arthurian, for said book to an insanely too criminal, boring life brought about by, as I have said before, my life as a man of ridiculous wealth. Actually, as I have no wish to engage in hyperbole, my wealth was of the normal variety, gold, coin, bonds, etc., etc., but it was in the amount that one might call ridiculous, at least when compared to that of most men. So although I have stated how I could bore you with details regarding my wealth, so I shall. Or perhaps not, for as I gaze upon my gold pocket timepiece, to those less cultured a watch, I feel there may not be time left for myself to indulge upon my wealth. No. Espouse, that is the more perfect word, I feel. But to continue. In 1/2 hour I have a visit scheduled, with my barber, to be precise, and after that, mere moments after, I believe, the world will be ended, and so any continuation of this discussion in regards to my wealth would be pointless and indeed impossible. But at least I shall have time for a shave and a hot towel before said event is to take place, for as a gentleman, if one is to face such a thing as the end of the world, there is no better way to do so than with face clean of stubble and a hot towel to bring one's color in one's face. But I digress. For let us say, or rather myself says, it is my tale to be sure, that I searched, found, then read from the aforementioned text. This was soon followed by a vision most odd, one of a world beyond our own, of a world beyond description. To be sure, this is not a term I use lightly, as you, dear reader, are well aware. I am a linguist extraordinaire, and this is a term I have used in the past lightly. But perhaps I should clarify. When I say a world beyond description, I do not mean in the traditional sense. It is rather in the sense that to do so would cause my mind to dissolve into some kind of primordial ooze before my very eyes, though I doubt I would notice such a thing, as I am very sure my eyes themselves would be in the midst of disillusion as well. Suffice to say, it wasn't what one would call an average visit due to its rather extreme message. Such a visit would, I think, place it into the category of an emergency. Still, it was a visit, and one must always strive to be the best host, no matter the circumstances. If not, then society would most likely lapse into social chaos, and even with the end of the world, such a thing, oh, it makes me shudder to think. Society itself would crumble. And by crumbling, I don't mean like the proverbial cookie, rather like melting. No, that's not quite right. Dissolving. Yes, dissolving into the aforementioned primordial ooze, with the ooze then dissolving further into nothing, I suppose. I'm sure I will find myself to be in a position to answer this, or not, now that I think about it. But I digress. However, it would appear to be digression is all that remains at this point, for I am unable to remember, recall, I think to be the stronger choice, exactly what occurred between myself and this, for lack of a better word, being. This may have been due to the entire brain disintegration issue which I have spoken of before. However, as that I am a very thorough fellow, due in no small part to my excellent schooling, I will attempt to dictate said communication while being careful to avoid the sections which may lead to the dissolution of part and all of our being. It appeared as if it had always been there. It stood, sat, lingered, lied, depending on one's perspective, I suppose, across from me, spoke some words of which I am unable to recite here, not because of any danger, as previously stated, but due to them being less like words and more akin to screeches and sounds that pierce the mind and soul simultaneously. Plus, being a gentleman, any attempt to relay such sounds would present me as a fool due to my inability to translate its language into anything resembling the Queen's English. And this, it should go without saying, is not something a gentleman, end of the world or no, would ever do. I seem to be unable to recall much of what happened next, other than I woke up in quite a wretched state to find said thing vanished. Unable to decide what exactly to do next, I chose the most sensible option, tea. 1 lump, no cream. The only option, considering the situation. Well, I suppose that nearly brings me to the end of our tale. I laughed just now upon realization of my words, end of my tale. A double entendre. Perhaps the first meaning derived itself from the second? I must take the time to confirm this, then share it with my fellows at the social club at some future time. Oh, yes, the end of the world and all that. One tends to forget these things, as gentlemen such as myself often have more pressing matters to attend. But then I suppose the end of the world would supersede all else. Well, you must excuse me while I draw my curtains, as the heat from the sun has become quite unbearable due to its spewing. No, that's too grotesque. Expelling its final breath upon our world. Quite a flourish of the pen, that sentence. I suppose one's final moments would display itself with a sort of artistic contemplation. I am harkened back to my days as a youth, when I had devoured more than my share of adventure tales, followed by my own attempts at putting pen to paper in the hopes for creating such stories. But, as is the way of the world, most of us have less than a good moment or two of creativity within us before realizing that... please pardon the interruption, but I do believe the earthquakes have begun, and I imagine they shall continue with their progression to the worst. But to complete my previous thought, one must excuse such dramatic flares of creativity in such times, but only enough as to be thoughtful. Moderation, of course, is the key to success. Keep in moderation, my father would say, and the world will soon sort itself out. Alas, I feel in this my father has proved quite wrong. So who am I to say wherein lies the key to success? Or perhaps not. It would depend on one's point of view in current events. I dabbled a bit in philosophy in Oxford, you know. Ah, as predicted, the quakes have become quite disruptive, although despite this I could swear to hear the screams of my fellow man rise above it all. But this, of course, should not surprise me, as mankind often has a way to rise above all, you know. Well, almost all. So, before the ground at my feet should tear asunder and cast me into a final oblivion, I shall continue. For as an educated gentleman, to end such a tale, one must always search for the perfect. Thanks for listening to my tale, my friends. If you should like to hear others, be sure to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, or leave a comment below. And perhaps I'll return.